Hello everyone. Today I am making a video on my memory timings, just going over them, and pretty much explaining why 6000 megahertz RAM is better than like if you wanted to run UCLK equals MEMCLK over 2 and have a higher frequency. Um, I just recorded a video going over a 7400 megahertz overclock at CL30, which is tight. Like that is very tight timings for 7400 megahertz. Considering that a regular timing for DDR5 for like AM5 is 6000 mega transfers per second, CL30. So 7400 CL30 is really pretty tight timings for that. But regardless, even with that, I am 3 nanoseconds slower at 7400 megatransfers per second than I am at 6000 CL24, which is not nothing. Like that's actually that's a pretty significant amount. So yeah, that's I would not. The only difference that these timings are from my the other video I made, like saying, like turning a 7700X into a 7800X 3D. Only difference between that and this is that my FCLK is overclocked to 2167. And I actually did that because one of the commenters in the comment section, they were like, why isn't your FCLK overclocked? And honestly, the answer to that is just because like I never really thought it was worth it. Is it worth it? I don't know, but it does increase bandwidth. It does. So, and it can't, if it's stable, it can't hurt anything. And, when I lowered VSOC to in BIOS it's 1.75 volts, but for whatever reason, it reads out to 1.66, or 1.67. So, that is what it is, I guess. And yeah, we're stable. So if you didn't know, lowering SOC voltage to a point to where UCLK is still stable, but it's like the lowest stable voltage, also raises FCLK stability for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know the mechanism of action. I don't know why lower SOC voltage leads to more stable FCLK, but it does. So, obviously gear down mode disabled, speed 6000. Like I said in my last video, I've tried 6200, I've tried 6400, and neither of those worked. My memory controller is just not strong enough to, even at 1.3 volts, it's impossible for me to stabilize 6200 or 6400. And that's, as you can see, well, some people are able to get 3000 megahertz UCLK at like 1.1 volts. So that kind of explains, I need I tried 1.1, 1.25, 1.5, and none of them were stable until I did 1.75. 1.75, I'm stable, but that's pretty much the limit. I might be able to push it down another, 0.05 or 0.05 volts maybe. Or not 0.05, like 0.005. Like, I don't know, but yeah, I'm not able to really lower voltage any more than what it's at right now. So yeah, some of these timings might be a little tighter, but regardless, anyways, I'm going totally off track. So I overclocked my RAM to 7400 CL30, relatively tight timings, and my latency was 60 nanoseconds. So if you are playing games, like more often than not, compared to any sort of other workload, and even if you do any other workload like video editing, the difference between, like 7400 and 6000, it might be a couple of seconds, maybe, if like in the worst possible scenario. So yeah. If you're on AM5, stick with 6000. Like, it's going to be really difficult. Unless you have a board that is capable of 8000 megahertz, then, which mine is not. But my max was 7400. I tried going to 7600, did not work. Tried everything. Tried lowering, upping every voltage in a you know in a bunch of different ways, and nothing worked. So I just decided 7400. That's it. I even considered 7200 because I wasn't 100% sure if 7400 was definitely stable or if it was just mostly stable. But yeah, so I did that CL30, which was barely stable in and of itself. I was barely able to stabilize CL30. Yeah, I had to loosen TRCD and TRP in order to finally get CL30, which it was stable. Like, it was stable enough at the very least to, like, do a little memory benchmark or whatever. But I'm pretty sure it was 100% stable. I just didn't test it. I didn't do a stress test for as long as I would have liked. Um, because last night I was going to run a stress test overnight, but for whatever reason, I was overclocking VRAM on my GPU. My PC froze because I was doing that. And then I went to go turn my PC on, and it was just like not like it would turn on, but the fans would spin, but it wouldn't actually post. Like, there was no sign that it was gonna post. Um, and it was already late, and I had work, so I was like, okay, I just don't have time to sit here and like troubleshoot my PC, re-enter all of these timings, and do a stress. I was like, I'm going to sleep. But kind of interesting fact: Warzone is a great memory stress test. I don't know why, but if memory, sometimes even if memory like won't fail in test mem5, like let's say it would take like 2 hours to fail in test mem5, if you load up a game of Warzone, you like drop down, you're running around, your game will freeze. If your RAM is even slightly unstable, your game will freeze. Like, full stop. It, like, I don't know what it is about Warzone, but it hits memory in a way that it just freezes the game. So if you run a memory overclock, your Warzone freezes. It's definitely memory. It's either memory or CPU. And if your CPU is like set to PBO, it is memory, because PBO normally, unless you have like an aggressive undervolt, is not going to be unstable. So yeah, for any sort of like gaming sort of workload, anything that you want, like good 1% lows, the thing. Well, averages at 7400 were a little bit higher. I think my averages went from like 205 up to like 215, but my 1% lows were lower than 6000 CL24 by a lot. My 1% lows were at like 50 FPS. When I went to 6000 CL24, my 1% lows went from 50 FPS up to like 85 FPS. So, which actually, I can pull that up. By the way, CapFrameX, great utility if you want to capture, like you'll see right here, fantastic utility. Analysis. This is, I did a bunch of tests, so I I wish I had. I know that what was this right here? This was 84. This was 6000 CL. Yeah, this was 6000 CL24, and this was 7400 CL32. So this wasn't actually CL30 because I just today got CL30 stable. So I just set CL32 yesterday. I was like, whatever. Yeah, like it's not like the end of the world. It's not gonna make or break performance, right? But it can raise 1% low. So don't think that CL doesn't matter. CL matters. Okay? So as you can see, what was yeah, this was 6000 CL24. So really good 0.1% lows. That's the problem with this, is that like my 0.1% lows were just dog water. And then these two were also at 7400 CL32. So, and then all of these were 7400 CL32. All of these. And my 1% low, see, I had one run that was okay with 1% lows, but then you go to CL 24 and it's just better. And actually, I think P95. Okay, P95 at 7400 is slightly higher. Okay, and averages are a little bit higher, but 0.1% lows is where it is at for games. That is where it is at, because that is how smooth the game is going to feel. That is the smoothness of the game. So you want you want your 0.1% lows to be as smooth as possible, or else your game's going to feel stuttery and rough. So yeah, I wish I could say faster memory speeds are better, but they're not, unfortunately. What would be great is if in the next generation, AMD came out with like a crazy good memory controller that could do like 4,000 megahertz. That would be awesome. Let me tell you, that would be really, really cool, because then you could run 8,000. What is it? Yeah, you could run 8,000 megahertz RAM, 1-to-1 mode. That would be crazy. That would be crazy. That would be like a real X3D. See that, but they wouldn't want to do that, because then I feel like that would actually compete with their X3D CPUs, right? Like the faster the RAM, the that gap between X3D and non-X3D chips, that closes with faster memory. So yeah, but that would be really cool though if the memory controller could do 4,000 megahertz. That would be crazy. I guess we'll see. But anyways, y'all, yeah, just wanted to go over that. If you're interested in like, I definitely recommend CapFrameX if you're interested in like getting 1% low data and stuff like that. It really is like a great program. But regardless, yeah, if you want to try these timings, go right ahead. Yeah. I do not recommend running UCLK 2-to-1 mode. And not only the fact that it is actually kind of worse, it's also difficult. Like 7400, if you have like a basic motherboard, might not even work. Like it just straight up might not work even at high voltage. It's just, it has to do with how many layers the PCB is on your motherboard. It's like there's a whole bunch that goes into that, but I just don't recommend it. 6,000, it's easy to stabilize. It's easy to tighten timings. Memory errors show up almost immediately. Like with 6,000 megahertz tight timings, any instability is going to show up pretty quickly. Like it's not like you're almost stable. Like normally it's either stable or it's unstable. There's not really that much wiggle room in between that. Yeah, unless you're having like a heat issue where after 5 hours your RAM heats up and then you get an error because of heat. Like that's the only instance where like instability would creep up over time after that amount of time, So yeah, I don't recommend 2-to-1 mode. And I really tried to make it work. I really did, but it's just too difficult. Like it's not intuitive for like the average user. Like you can get 2-to-1 mode to be faster. You can, it's possible, but it is so much more difficult than simply tuning 6,000 megahertz on AM5 to be pretty much just as good as like 8,000. Like I guarantee you what my timings are right now is nearly just as good as 8,000 megahertz at like CL34. Right? Like it's yeah, I have less bandwidth, so like in certain workloads, certain tasks, it's going to be slower, but not in the specific task that I'm using my PC for anyways, Like if that was the case, I'd probably go with like Intel for like, workstation sort of stuff. Like I don't even know if I'd go with AMD. To get that like the faster RAM and this and that. So anyways, yeah, definitely stick with 6,000. If you can run 6,200, 6,400, go ahead, do it, but you're not going to be able to get your timings as low. But I would rather have faster RAM and like looser timings than super tight timing, slower RAM. So yeah. Anyways, y'all, thank you for watching. Hopefully you found this video informative. Hopefully, you got some information from it. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. See ya.